Upon her first Skype call to me from my duty station in Afghanistan, my daughter said, "Daddy, please, you need to come home." "What's wrong, baby?" "It's Mom, Dad." It was evident from the low quality of the video that she was crying. "What's wrong with Mom?" "She's seeing another man." My heart gave out. My lovely wife of 18 years had always been so devoted to me and our daughter, Stacy. "How do you know that, honey?" "You must be mistaken. She spends 2 or 3 nights a week out with him, Dad. She occasionally returns home at 2 or 3 in the morning. She didn't get home until almost 7 this morning. I'm afraid, Dad." Bile rose into my throat, which I choked down. "Do you know who the man is, Stacy?" "I believe he goes by Donald something." "Donald Connolly?" "Indeed, that is him. He picked up my mother the only time I've ever seen him. Tall, somewhat scrawny man with short grey and black hair. He's the mayor if that's who it is. He sometimes picks Mom up in a limo and drives an opulent car." That was logical. Kathy had contributed to his campaign for office. Perhaps she was simply accompanying him to a party or something. However, why is she returning home so late if that is the case? "Daddy, I need you here. Please come home," pleaded Stacy. "Honey, I'll see what I can do, but whatever you do, don't say anything to your mom." "No, Dad, I won't. But please move quickly to avoid a truly dire situation." "I'll try my hardest. Stacy, you have my undying love." "Love you too, Dad." Robert Crawford is my name. I work as a design specialist for a big electronics company and am 42 years old. Because I'm a major in the National Guard as well, I'm currently serving on the command staff for a year in Afghanistan. Our amazing 15-year-old daughter, Stacy, is the result of my 18-year marriage to the love of my life, Kathy. Despite being 40, Kathy still looks young. She is the most gorgeous woman I have ever met. She is 5 feet 6 inches and has a fantastic body that got even better after having our daughter. Her warm brown eyes, which glitter when she smiles, and her dark brown hair that falls to her shoulders. She also has a constant smile. Sincerely, our marriage has been a rock-solid union. Our time together has been warm and loving even during my deployment, and our sex has always been hot and fulfilling. Neither she nor I have ever questioned our loyalty to one another. What then transpired? I had absolutely no idea. After completing the required paperwork for a 30-day emergency family leave, I boarded a flight and, 26 hours later, arrived at my hometown airport to rent a car and return home. I pulled over a half block from my house at 6:30 on a Friday night. The sun had already set in mid-November and the neighborhood was bathed in an unsettling glow from the streetlights. I could see that my living room, kitchen, and master bedroom upstairs all had lights on. There were times when I could actually see my wife pass by the window. She appeared to be getting ready to leave. After 3 rings on her cell phone, my daughter answered and spoke softly. "Daddy, is that you?" "Yes, sweetheart. I'm here, a half block from the house, don't say anything." "Oh, Daddy, thank you," she said, and her tears began to fall. "Is your mom going out tonight?" "I think so. She spent more than an hour in her room. Her humming is now audible to me after I heard the shower. It seems that she is quite looking forward to her evening." "Yes, I suppose." "Daddy, it makes me feel ill. Why is she treating us in this way?" "Your mother might not know, Stacy, and neither do I. Until we find out the truth, let's reserve judgment on her." "What are you going to do?" "I'm not entirely certain. I suppose I'll just follow them around to gain a sense of the situation before determining how to react." "Daddy, exercise caution. Should I change into something new?" "Not at all. When the time comes, I believe my camouflage fatigues will be noticeable enough to cause some surprise and amazement." "Daddy, good luck with that. I cherish you. Stacy, I adore you too. And you and I will always be together, no matter what." A black Mercedes pulled into my driveway at 7, and a tall, lean, elegantly dressed man got out. I assumed he would go to the door, but after he spoke on his cell phone for a short while, the master suite's lights went out. My wife came out onto the porch a minute after the door opened. With a broad smile on her face, she made sure the door locked behind her before briskly approaching her date. She was very gorgeous, and when I saw her look back at the house to make sure Stacy wasn't looking, my heart fell into a million pieces. She then gave our illustrious mayor, the one who stole the mayor's wife, a warm kiss on the mouth. After assisting her into the vehicle, they departed. Luckily, I managed to remain steady enough to use my phone to take a photo of the kiss. I kept a safe distance behind them and found it easy to follow them because there wasn't much traffic. They arrived at the recent hotel's parking lot after driving across town. I parked 6 or 7 spaces away and observed them getting out of the car and going inside the structure. I took another picture of them as they walked closely together, arms around each other. Their affair had clearly been going on for a long time. They appeared to be a loving married couple going on a date night because they were so at ease with one another. I waited for them to enter the hotel before donning my sunglasses and camo hat and following them. I was unconcerned when I couldn't see them when I got inside. While checking out the information board listing the current events taking place inside the hotel, I received some of the customary smiles and "thank you for your service" remarks. The St. James Hospital charity ball was one that jumped out. The live orchestra was playing in the ballroom on the 3rd floor, and the lobby was already filled with the sound of it. I chose to walk up the stairs instead of taking the bank of elevators that carried elegantly dressed and wealthy couples to the ballroom. I did this out of consideration for other people and because I knew I would be sitting for the most of the long flights and I didn't want to be noticed too soon. I followed the music to the 3rd floor, where I found the ballroom with ease. I cautiously strolled by the entrance, peering inside, and sure enough, there they were, right there in the doorway, appearing and behaving like the contented couple. They were saying hello to supporters and friends. For a brief moment, my spouse turned to face me, but I couldn't recognize her expression. For what reason would there be? She didn't know that I was still 10,000 miles away, battling the Taliban, sandstorms, and flies. Oh, and I should have mentioned that she was missing her wedding rings. After passing through the doorway, I entered the men's room and took a seat in a stall to try to figure out what to do next. It was difficult for me to process what I had witnessed. I was pretty sure that my marriage to Kathy was as strong as it gets. How foolish I felt. My devoted wife was probably dishing me and breaking our wedding vows while I was in Afghanistan performing my duty to my country. And why were they meeting and greeting all those people, and what was wrong with them? Were they unaware that the woman threatening the mayor was wed to an army officer who was serving abroad? I wiped away the warm tears that started to fall down my cheek. There was no time to wallow in misery. I needed to think through and execute a plan. I no longer had to battle the Taliban as my enemy at the moment. I gave the celebrations enough time to get going by spending 30 minutes in the restroom before entering the ballroom. I moved slowly away from the bar and food tables, keeping to the wall until I reached a vantage point behind a pillar from where I could see most of the room. Only the few people at the entrance noticed me. Even though I didn't have a ticket to the event, my uniform was more influential than any paperwork. I was greeted with a salute and a "welcome, sir," by the young man who was taking tickets when I entered. I couldn't help but think, how unfortunate that my wife and her lover don't respect me and the uniform I wear. Finding Kathy and her date took a few minutes. With my wife's arms wrapped around his neck, her head resting against his chest, and his hands resting lustfully on her butt, they were dancing to a slow song. I was able to snap a few pictures, but I had to really work hard not to jump on the ground, deck the guy, and kick his balls right up into his kidneys. However, that would probably land me in jail and only bring me a small amount of satisfaction. Complete evidence of their affair was what I needed and wanted, after which I would find a suitable means of retaliating for their flagrant disregard for our daughter, me, and the U.S. Army. After dancing a different dance, they walked arm in arm to their table and gave each other a passionate kiss and caress before taking a seat. I took pictures of everything. I decided I'd seen enough for now and headed out into the hallway to find a spot to watch the elevators and the doors leading to the ballroom. Patience was a virtue I had learned as an army officer because 2 more hours passed before the event started to wind down and people started leaving the building and descending the elevators. It didn't take long for the mayor and my wife to leave and stand outside the door chatting. They exchanged a smile and turned to face the bank of elevators on their left after a minute. However, they selected the button that would raise them rather than the one that would lower them. It was not just strange. I was sitting on a bench against the wall, only a few feet away from them, with my name tag prominently visible on the front of my camouflage fatigues and sunglasses. Among the tuxedos and ball gowns, I looked completely out of place. While many other couples saw me and waved or smiled, my wife and her partner were so in sync with one another that they never even looked at me. I saw that their car had stopped on the 11th floor and was waiting to see if it would go up again as the elevator door opened and they stepped in holding hands. It didn't, in fact, it descended back to the 3rd floor, where a number of additional couples were standing in line to descend to the lobby. I walked back down to the desk for registration. I know this is an unusual request, but I have an important message for Mayor Connolly that I've been directed to deliver to him personally. I presented my official identification. I need to know what room he is in. The girl behind the desk appeared anxious. Sir, I'm really not supposed to divulge that information. Young lady, if it wasn't of a most urgent nature, do you really think I'd be here in my uniform? After giving several nods, she looked over her registry. He's in 114. Thank you, miss. I proceeded to the lifts and alighted on the 11th level. The arrow led to the left, toward rooms 1101 through 1134. I walked by 1114, pressed my ear to the door, and turned to see if anyone else was in the hallway. That was all I could hear, soft conversation. I continued down the hallway until I came to the door leading to the staircase. I decided to sandwich my handkerchief between the door and the latch in case it locked behind me. Next, I looked at my watch. Midnight. I waited a long time because Stacy said her mother usually returned home between 2 and 3, and recently even at 7. However, once more, my patience and army training paid off. I could see room 1114 through the door's window, so when their sex fest was over, I wouldn't miss them. Though I pretended to focus on the task at hand while I waited, the truth is that I couldn't help but see her lover driving his tool deep into my wife, who had promised to be mine alone. My heart was broken, yes, but it was much more than that. I could feel the pain, rejection, and humiliation that remained at the bottom of my life's abyss. The realization that the woman I trusted with all my heart and loved more than anything on earth was giving her body, soul, love, and passion to another man at that very moment was unbearable, even though I knew I had to keep my composure for my daughter's sake. I went out of the stairwell and pressed my ear to their door at about 1:30. I heard very little sound. After what sounded like moaning, I could clearly hear my wife exclaim, "Yes, oh God, yes. Don, please give me all that you have. You're very talented." Then she screamed, a cry I'd heard her let out on numerous occasions during her peak moments with me. Tears were streaming down my face as I made my way back to the stairs. I assumed that in the next hour or so, they would be packing up and heading out of their love nest. I finally made my way out of the stairwell at 2, parked myself against the wall outside their room, and waited for them to emerge. My phone was in video mode. 15 minutes later, I heard the chain being removed from the door and the click of it opening. As soon as they left their room, I started to record. She was smiling as she leaned against him, his arm wrapped around her in protective embrace. Kathy appeared well-groomed and clean-shaven. Donald Connolly appeared self-satisfied. After a quick kiss, they turned to face the elevators. Kathy saw me. "Kathy, how was the screwing going?" "You two seem to have had a good time," I remarked. When Kathy finally saw me, she gave off the impression that she was about to faint. Putting her hand to her chest, she exclaimed, "Oh, Bob, no. God, please say no. This can't be happening. This wasn't meant for you to see." She dropped to one knee. Her lover didn't realize who Kathy was speaking to for a few more seconds before he exclaimed, "Hey man, this is really not what it looks like." She was merely assisting me with my latest endeavor. Yes, I replied. It's evident. I guess the new campaign tactic is to screw her and ruin her marriage. When newspapers and TV stations learn that you have been mistreating an army officer's wife while he is in Afghanistan protecting his country, I wonder how the electorate will react to that. Now hold on, there was no sexual activity involved. Tell him, Kathy. Mr. Mayor, please refrain from trying to con me. I heard the moaning and the do-me don through the door, and I saw the kissing at my house and on the dance floor. My wife is all yours, you've won her over. Furthermore, I'm sure you two take pride in the fact that it all happened behind my back while I was dodging oncoming traffic 10,000 miles away. You guys are both effing cowards. My daughter is aware of your actions as well. My wife fell to the ground in a heap and began to cry, while Connolly stood there speechless and unsure of how to react. Kathy, don't even bother to come home tonight. With your partner, spend the night. I'm going to console our daughter, and on Monday, as soon as I tell the media who the city's mayor is, I'm going to file for divorce. Please stay away until I return. I have a 30-day emergency leave of absence. After that, you can choose how to live the remainder of your life. Bob, please, my spouse said. Kathy, please what? Could you please pardon me for letting you screw another man for the duration of my deployment, if not longer? Would you please keep what you've been doing from our daughter? Kathy, she already knows. It was she who gave me the order to return home. Although I can't begin to understand why you did what you did, you undoubtedly had motivations. Since all you have left is each other, I hope the two of you are in love. After that, I turned and headed for the elevator. I'm sorry, Bob, she sobbed. Kathy, I'm sorry about what? I apologize for learning about it. I apologize if I offended your new partner. I apologize if I ruined your new life as the society queen of the town. From the moment you left our house until you recently left room 1114, I watched the two of you, and I never once saw any indication that you were sorry for anything. On the contrary, you appeared to be as content as any couple could be with one another. Enjoy your life. No, you two eat and perish. I entered the elevator and hit the button for the lobby. Stacy was waiting for me when I got home. She had obviously been crying. She rushed over to embrace me with her arms. Oh, Daddy, you are sorely missed. I'm very happy you're back. I missed you too, baby, more than I can tell you. Dad, did you find them? The mayor and Mom? Yes, darling, I did find them, and I must apologize, you were correct. I doubt your mother will return home for some time. I'm not bothered, Daddy. Almost since you left, she hasn't paid any attention to me. Kindly bring me along the next time you go. Honey, I've got to go back to Afghanistan in a month, and as much as I wish you could be with me, you have to stay here. Dad, I can't stay with her. I detest her. No, Stacy. Your mother is still your mother, regardless of what she has done to me during our marriage. She doesn't love me, Dad, she said, encircling me in her arms. She sobbed as I held her. After I persuaded Stacy to go to bed, I took extra precautions around the house, like locking the doors, in case Kathy tried to return. I was not positive that Kathy and her lover had slept on the couch, but I didn't want to take the chance because I had no evidence that they had used any of our bedrooms for their tryst. Only in short bursts, 45 minutes here, 30 minutes there, did I fall asleep. Until I left in 30 days, I kept thinking about how I would handle the situation when Kathy came to claim her clothes and personal belongings. I couldn't find it in my heart to be that nice. I could have been a nice guy and taken a hotel room, leaving the house to her. Since she was the one who ended our marriage, she should at least be allowed to put up with the small annoyance of having to move out of her house for a month. In addition, her lover would undoubtedly be delighted to host her. They could live together for a while now that they've been acting like a married couple. Refer to it as a trial union. Stacy and I both slept till noon, well, at least off and on until noon. I got up first and fixed coffee, then managed to make toast and scrambled eggs for us. When Stacy finally came out of her room, we made small talk while we ate, and while we were rinsing the dishes and placing them in the dishwasher, the phone rang. Stacy and I looked at each other, then she answered it. Hello? Oh, hello, Mom. Yes, he's here. No, I don't think he wants to talk to you. Why would he? There was a pause while she listened. Mom, really? Dad and I both find it hard to believe you're sorry. It's not like you slipped up and kissed the guy once. You've been having an affair with your boyfriend ever since Dad deployed. Another long pause. Yes, I was the one that told Dad I needed him to come home. Pause. Mom, you've ignored me for months. The only thing that you've thought about, the only thing that's been important to you, is your affair with Donald Connolly. Pause. Mom, please use your brain. Why would I tell Dad not to hurt Mayor Connolly? That evil man needs to be hurt and hurt badly for what he's done. Sorry, Mom, not going to happen. Bye, Mom. Stacy turned to face me. She seemed scared, Dad, like she doesn't understand what's going on. It's like she thinks her cheating on you is no big deal and she can't figure out why you don't want her to come home. She doesn't understand? No big deal? Well, I promise that before I'm done with the two of them, she will understand what she's done and just how many people she's hurt by her behavior. Things were quiet around the house for most of the day. I tried to keep from thinking about what Kathy might be doing with her lover, and Stacy tried to talk to me to keep my mind occupied. We did talk about what would be best for her when I went back to Afghanistan. I thought she'd be happy staying in her home, going to her school, being with her friends, but Stacy was afraid her friends would turn against her once they learned the terrible things her mother had done. I told her that real friends would stand beside her, but she wasn't convinced. We settled things with my assurance that I'd call my mom to see if Stacy could stay with her until my deployment ended, hopefully in another 5 or 6 months. Late in the afternoon, the phone rang again. It was Kathy. I answered, but as soon as I heard Kathy say, Bob, oh Bob, please give me a chance to explain, I passed the phone to Stacy without saying a word. What, Mom? Stacy's voice was hard and cold, and she held the phone away from her ear so I could hear what her mother was saying. Stacy, I need to talk to your dad. I told you, Mom, he doesn't want to talk to you. But I need to explain to him. Explain what, Mom? What can you possibly tell Dad that will explain what you and Donald Connolly have been doing for the past 6 months? It's not what you think, Stacy. Yes, Mom, it is exactly what Dad and I think. You've turned your back on both of us in the worst way a woman can turn her back on her family. Shame on you, Mom. Shame on you. Stacy was hollering at her mother at this point. I could hear Kathy crying. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, Stacy. Well, you did hurt people, Mom. People who loved you more than anything in the world, and you ripped the heart out of the one man that would die for you. I hope you're proud of yourself, Mom. I hope your sordid affair was worth it because it cost you your family, whatever that's worth to you. I just hope that one day you will wake up from this fantasy world you're living in and realize how selfish and stupid you have been. Oh, please, Stacy, I love you and your dad. Yeah, right, Mom, and pigs fly. If you love us, you have a really strange way of showing it, and I hate to think what you'd do if you hated us. Now, do you need something, or can I go back to spending time with my dad? There was the sound of Kathy crying. I need some things, she said quietly. I need some clothes, and I need my pills. That last part came out softly. What pills would that be, Mom? Oh God, my pills. My birth control pills. Oh sure, how stupid of me. Of course you do. We couldn't have you carrying around the mayor's bastard child now, could we, Mom? That would really cramp your style, huh? Hard to neck on the dance floor when you're fat and pregnant. Well, I'll tell Dad, and I'm sure between the two of us we can manage to pack your clothes and your birth control pills. And my makeup too, Stacy. Oh right, Mom, of course. As the town society queen, you have to keep looking beautiful for His Royal Highness, the Mayor, and your public. I'll make sure everything is out at the curb by 6 o'clock tonight so you can drive by and pick it up. Have a nice night, Mom. She hung up the phone and immediately began to cry. I put my arms around my daughter. You were kind of hard on your mom, Stacy. I know, she hiccupped. I'm not proud of it, but I'm so angry I couldn't help it. I just had to unload on her. I know, baby, I know. We'll get through this, Stacy. We won't let them win. I gave her another hug and left her to round up the things her mother needed. I went to my office. I needed to think, and there were a lot of things I had to do in the next few days. My army training kicked in, allowing me to methodically work through everything. I was an expert at putting together battle plans, and this was, in all respects, a battle. The usual minutiae were a no-brainer: find a good divorce lawyer, cancel our joint credit cards, get one credit card in my name and one in Stacy's, change the beneficiary to Stacy on my life insurance and retirement plans, and move half the money in the checking and savings accounts into accounts accessible only by Stacy and me. The more difficult tasks had to do with how to deal with Mayor Connolly. He had to be punished, and punished in a way that would make him out to be nothing more than a cowardly wife-stealing scumbag. Part of the answer to that task came at 8 that evening in the form of a phone call, which I answered. Crawford Residence, Robert Crawford. I didn't recognize the man's voice. That's right, Major Robert Crawford. I don't know why I threw that in, but I guess I wanted to make an early statement. Major Crawford, my name is Ray Swanson. I'm a city councilman here and a friend of Mayor Connolly. I was wondering if I could talk to you about the little misunderstanding involving you, your wife, and the mayor last night. Little misunderstanding? Is that the city's official spin on my wife and Donald Connolly's sex scandal at the Rise until 2 this morning? Now, there's no need for that kind of language. We're just talking about a little late-night party between 2 consenting adults who likely had a little too much to drink and got carried away a bit. I'm sure if we just talk about it, we can straighten everything out. Nothing to talk about, Ray. Mayor Connolly has been screwing my wife for the past 6 months while I've been in Afghanistan, and last night I caught them. I understand how troubling that is to you, Major, but I'm hoping that we can find a way to work through this for everyone's sake. Who's everyone, Ray? My only concern is for my daughter. The rest of you can go to hell. I'm sorry you feel that way, Major. The mayor is a powerful man in this community, and anything that might drag him down or make him look bad could result in, shall we say, some negative things happening to whoever caused that to happen. Are you threatening me, Ray? Just telling it like it is, Major. I personally would hate to see anything happen to you or anyone you love. Let me tell you something, Ray, and I strongly suggest you listen carefully. I've spent the last 6 months dealing with the Taliban, meeting them at every turn and filling their lives with pain and suffering. Don't ever get the idea that I will back down from a fight with a tin-horn wife-stealing scumbag mayor of a town that barely rates a dot on the state map. You and your friend the mayor have never met an adversary like me. I don't give a damn how powerful you think you are messing with the devil if you take me on. That's something my soon-to-be ex-wife forgot to mention to the mayor before she got involved with him. You might have money behind you, Ray, but I have every man and woman within 100 miles who ever served in the United States Armed Forces. See, we don't like men who take advantage of our soldiers' wives while they are fighting a war overseas. In fact, we loathe and detest them. Here's a little advice, Councilman Swanson, don't mess with me. Remove yourself as far away from Mayor Connolly as you possibly can, or you just might find yourself burned by the fire that's about to pour down on your good friend Mayor Connolly. Major, please, let's be reasonable. Surely there's an amount of money, let's say a large amount of money, that could change hands and soothe the hurt feelings caused by this unfortunate incident. There aren't any hurt feelings, Ray. There's just cold, damning rage that a man like Donald Connolly could take advantage of a soldier's wife while he was fighting a war defending his country. And there isn't enough money in Fort Knox to make that go away. The only possible way for this to enter my satisfaction is to see Connolly and my wife feel the pain they've caused my daughter and me. You have my permission to pass that message on to both of them. Tell them to get all the sex they can and as quickly as they can, because I promise that in a very short time, they may not feel like doing it anymore, at least not with each other. Major, listen, I'm in a tight spot here. When word gets out about this, a lot of heads will roll. There must be some way we can make this go away. Well, if you were sincere about wanting that to happen, it can start by Connolly publicly admitting that he has been having an affair with an army officer's wife while that officer was fighting a war in Afghanistan. Then he can follow that up by apologizing, admitting his mistake, and stepping down as mayor of this community and slinking off into obscurity. He can even claim the booby prize and take my cheating wife along with him. Nothing short of that will change my mind about publicly humiliating him and bringing him to his knees. Damn, you're really serious about this, aren't you? As serious as I have ever been about anything, Ray. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to fix dinner for my daughter and me. I hung up. Stacy came in from the garage. I put Mom's clothes and stuff out by the curb, and someone I didn't recognize in a black Mercedes stopped and picked it up. Well, for your mom's sake, let's hope that person was sent by Connolly, or there will be some mighty nice clothes for sale at Goodwill. I smiled at Stacy. I'm not sure what Goodwill would do with her birth control pills. Stacy just giggled. I packed her regular clothes, but couldn't get myself to include any of her fancy nightgowns. She has some pretty erotic teddies that I've never seen before. Just looking at them makes me sick. It's okay, Stacy. Thank you for handling that. She just nodded her head. You know you're going to have to eventually talk to her. I know I will when I'm ready and the time is right. The rest of the weekend went by without incident. Stacy helped me do laundry while I spent time working on my plan to bring down Mayor Connolly. Monday morning, I called a guy I knew at the local paper and arranged to meet him. John Foster met me for coffee at Denny's. He was a nice guy, a reputable reporter, and a few years back had been a sergeant in my National Guard company. What can I do for you, a major? John, I've got some information for you, and what you do with it is up to you. It may sound self-serving to you, and in a way, it is. As I'm sure you know, our Guard company has been deployed to Afghanistan for the past 6 months. Foster nodded. Well, what you may not know is that the whole time we've been away, Donald Connolly has been having a rather public affair with the wife of one of our soldiers. What's the soldier's name, Bob? I'd rather not say, JN, unless it becomes absolutely necessary. I know if I was being cucked by a slimeball like Connolly, I wouldn't want the word to get out. I've seen the two of them together, very cozy. The scuttlebutt on the street is that she is separated from her husband and is going through a divorce. I guarantee you that's not the truth, John. In fact, the husband had no knowledge of the affair until a week ago. No separation except the war, and no divorce, at least not yet. I understand, Major, but I can't make unfounded accusations against the mayor of this town and not get sued. Do you have any proof of the affair? I do, I said, and I showed him the pictures and video I'd taken. Of course, I'd appreciate it if the woman's face was blurred a little. Foster caught on immediately and showed some discomfort. Are you sure you want to go through with this, Bob? You know the truth will eventually come out. I shook my head sadly. I know, JN, but I'll just have to deal with the shame. It's not like I was aware of it while it was going on. While Connolly was screwing my wife, I was 10,000 miles away in that miserable sandbox, ducking bullets. The real shame is on Connolly. You're one of us, so you know what a breach of trust it is to take advantage of a soldier in harm's way by having an adulterous affair with his wife. Foster looked sad and nodded. Let me see what I can do. You're sure it's been going on the whole time you've been gone? Yeah, there are other people who've known about it the whole time, people who can't be identified for their protection. I transferred the photos and video to his cell phone, and we spent another 10 minutes talking about the 3 guys from our company who gave their all in the deployment. Then we shook hands and went our separate ways. My next step was to find a good divorce lawyer. I found a couple of names online and, after checking their references, chose one that looked promising. R.J. Collins, Esquire had an office in the downtown district, and I made an appointment for that afternoon. When I got to the office, I was surprised to discover that R.J. stood for Revenge VAA Joy, a tomboyish-looking woman about 50 with graying hair and a no-nonsense attitude. Major Crawford, what can I do for you? I liked the way she got right down to business. I need a divorce, and I can tell you up front it's not going to be a pleasant one. She rolled her eyes at me. There's no such thing as a pleasant divorce, Major, but I'll play along. Why won't your divorce be pleasant? Because while I've been in Afghanistan the last 6 months, the mayor of this little town has been bedding my wife on a regular basis. Her eyes flew open, and she dropped the pen she was holding. You mean Connolly? I nodded. Yes. Major, you have my undivided attention. For the next half hour, I told her everything while she took notes, stopping me occasionally for clarification or to ask a question. So your daughter, Stacy, is she an only child? And she's 15? How does she feel about what's going on? She hates it. It's tearing her up. She doesn't want to stay with her mother when I go back to Afghanistan. Well, she's old enough that the court will take her desires into consideration. But since she can't go to war with you, is there another option besides your wife? My mom. I'll call her to see if she'll take Stacy until my deployment is up in 6 months. I'm sure she'd love to have her granddaughter stay with her for a while. We talked for the better part of an hour. I gave her the information about our finances, and she told me I needed to talk with my wife to see if there was any possible way we could get past what had happened. I told her if she had seen the look in their eyes when they were together, she would understand why there was no way Kathy and I could ever put this behind us, and I wanted the papers ready to serve as soon as possible. Another week passed. Kathy only gave me a call 5 times this time around to talk to me. Every time, I ended the conversation by telling her I would let her know the where and when. My lawyer informed me on Friday that the divorce documents were prepared and just needed to be served. All she needed to know was the location. I told her that the next Monday at 2, when Stacy was in school, I would invite Kathy to my house so that she could be served. I gave Kathy a call on her cell phone and asked to meet at the house on Monday at 2. She kept trying to get me to listen to her blatantly prepared justification for her actions, but I ended the call by telling her that I would give her as much time as she needed when we got together on Monday. A little before 2, Kathy showed up, and we took a seat at the kitchen table. My heart stopped when I saw her. She was stunning. It must have been beneficial for her to have an affair with Connolly. Coffee? No, just water, please. I know you want to have the opportunity to tell me some things, and I will give you that opportunity. Thank you, Bob. I don't want you to get caught off guard, though, so I do need to tell you before you begin that in a little while someone will show up and serve you with divorce papers. Her face went completely white. Why, Bob? That's not what I want. I didn't want you to have a 6-month affair with Donald Connolly either, so I guess neither one of us gets our way. Bob, please, if you'll just hear me out, you'll see why this happened and how we can get around it. I gave a head nod. Go ahead, talk. As you are aware, I assisted Donald with his campaign. We were thrown together at events and on precinct walks the entire time, and we became friends. Donald bought me lunch and allowed me to use him as a sounding board when I was lonely and depressed after you were deployed. He was a huge help to me in getting over my grief over missing you. Then one evening, he invited me to join him for dinner. In order to prevent rumors from spreading, he advised me to use my maiden name and leave my wedding rings at home because there would be a number of very powerful couples present. I realize now that taking off my rings was a mistake, even though I didn't consider it at the time. That evening, we got to know a ton of people, and every one of them saw me as a single woman. When did the sex start? Her hands caught her attention. Not immediately, even though that evening we danced closely. And he gave me a goodnight kiss after he brought me home. And you let him? I was lonely, Bob, and I had just spent a romantic night with a handsome man who had stature in the community and who treated me like a princess. Pampered you like a princess while your spouse was engaged in combat? And that gave you permission to treat me badly? No, it didn't at all. However, I was perplexed. You were so far away, and I was really missing you. I'm not sure, he just gave me a positive feeling. I gave a nod, and she continued. After that, we started going out to eat more often and to more events. I was beginning to enjoy myself so much with him, and it lessened my longing for you. The sexual aspect? I inquired. Once more, her gaze dropped to her hands. You'd been absent for a month. I was going out 2 or 3 times a week with Donald. He asked me to go home with him one evening following a romantic dinner. And you did? With regret, she nodded. I did, indeed. After that, I felt awful. I actually made him take me home because I was so sick to my stomach. I told him I loved my husband and that I couldn't believe I betrayed you while you were at war, but I also couldn't see him anymore. But you changed your mind again? With regret, she nodded. I was left alone by Donald for a few days. Then he gave me a call and expressed how much he was missing me. He expressed his desire to reunite with me as friends only. He said he felt bad about what we had done and vowed never to put me in a precarious situation again. So you saw him again? Indeed. He took me to a party at one of his friends' houses on the Bluffs that same week. Just 5 or 6 couples, all very important people, attended the small-scale party. At some point in the evening, I was asked how I had won over the most eligible bachelor in town by the wife of a well-known doctor. She surprised me, and since I was at a loss for words, I just told her that my husband and I were divorcing and that I was separated from him. That bit of information spread like wildfire in a town the size of this one, and I felt helpless. I ended up spending the weekend at Donald's house while Stacy spent it at a horse camp with some friends. And the rest, as they say, is history. Indeed. Bob, I'm so sorry that I upset you and Stacy. I would do anything to go back and undo it because it was the worst thing I have ever done in my life. But you can't. No, I can't. Do you love him? I'm not sure whether I love him. I really enjoy him. Together, we really enjoy ourselves. Yes, I do recall. Having sex can be a great time. Is he more of a lover than I am? Not at all. Oh, I'm not sure. It's not the same. Have you been staying with him since I caught you at the hotel? Yes. And still having sex with him? Yes. Are you going to marry him? I'm not sure. We have discussed it. The doorbell went off. I think that's for you, Kathy. She stood up and moved cautiously toward the door. Are you Kathy Crawford? She gave a nod of approval and was given a manila envelope. You've been served. Kathy held the envelope in her hands and stood staring out the door for a considerable amount of time. She was crying, as I could see when she eventually shut the door and turned around. So it's really over between us, Bob? Yes, it is truly over, Kathy. You ensured that. But I love you so much. No, you cherish the life we shared, even though you wasted it. You can now move on and start a new life. What about Stacy? She wants to go stay with my mom till my deployment ends. At last, Kathy began to cry. Oh God, what have I done? Who is the mystery married woman coming out of a hotel room with Mayor Connolly was the headline for a picture that appeared on the front page of the local newspaper the next day. Does her army husband serving in Afghanistan know what's going on, was the caption beneath the photo of Kathy and the mayor kissing as they left room 1114. The story that went with it included information about the charity function that the two were going to together, as well as hotel records that made it evident that the mayor had reserved the room for the night and that the couple had been snapped out of it at 2 in the morning. Unfounded rumors that the woman and her husband had been meeting on a regular basis for the previous 6 months while her husband was serving in Afghanistan were also mentioned in the story. There was more to the story. The newspaper claimed that because of the high profile of the man and the seriousness of the offense committed against a soldier in danger, it was their editorial duty to publish it. That just got really bad. The mayor's office quickly responded to the story by saying that it was a complete fabrication and that Mayor Connolly would never do anything to endanger a marriage, much less the marriage of a soldier serving his country overseas, within minutes of it reaching the public. They continued by saying that the photo was clearly a fake and that the mayor was the target of some mysterious, evil people. Later that afternoon, he would correct the record at a press conference. It all sounded wonderful, but sadly, too many people had seen Kathy and Connolly together over the previous 6 months. They'd never been shy about displaying their love for one another in public. As a result, as his friends and supporters started to turn away from him, a number of people called the newspaper under false pretenses to admit they had proof that the couple had been having an affair. They were horrified to learn that the woman's husband was serving in the army during the affair, as they had seen it happen multiple times. When Mayor Connolly held his news conference that afternoon, none of his council allies supported him. His staff, in fact, was the only thing supporting him, and oddly, half of them were absent. However, the media was present and captured the entire incident on camera as Connolly expressed his shock at being implicated in such an unbelievable act. He reassured everyone that he was just an acquaintance with the woman in question and that neither she nor her husband had ever done anything to dishonor the other. Midway through his brief speech, Kathy elbowed her way past the audience and approached the microphone. She introduced herself to everyone as Kathy Crawford, much to Connell's horror. "I have been having an affair with Mayor Connolly for the last 6 months. I am the wife of Army Major Robert Crawford." Connolly attempted to push her aside at that moment, saying, "I don't know this woman, she's lying." "Yes, you do know me, you son of a." Kathy cut her off. "It's also time for us to acknowledge what disgusting human beings we truly are. I wish I could die because of how ashamed I am of what I did to my husband, but I won't stand by and allow you to lie about it." She turned to look at Connolly, who was red now, embarrassed and angry. "Robert, you pursued me despite knowing that I was married and that my spouse was in Afghanistan. I lost the only man who has ever loved me and embarrassed myself by listening to you, because I was such a fool." Her face was dripping with tears. "I am so ashamed and heartbroken, and I will be sorry for the rest of my life." "I'm sorry, Bob," Kathy said, staring straight into the TV cameras. "I love you," she said, walking away from the group as the reporters began yelling questions at the mayor, who then turned around and bounded back into City Hall. Admittedly, hearing that all went public hurt my already delicate ego, but the next day, when I went to see my newspaper contact, John Foster, I was aware of the risk I was taking. I should have felt satisfied when the city council president declared that the mayor had resigned and that the council would govern the city until a new mayoral election could be held, but instead I felt a profound, hollow loneliness. I was missing my wife more than I thought it was possible. That afternoon, my friend who works as a reporter called to inform me that Connolly had left town without leaving a forwarding address, and my soon-to-be ex-wife had not gone with him. I made the most of my remaining leave by spending as much time as possible with my daughter. In the last week, I let Kathy return to the house and Stacy and I drove 60 miles to my mother's house, where I registered my daughter for school, promising to pick her up as soon as my deployment ended. I had a deep-seated resentment towards the enemy who was hiding in the desert when I boarded the plane to return to Afghanistan the following week. How is Kathy doing? She moved in with Connolly a few weeks later, and the two have since left the town. Robert, did you return from Afghanistan? Yes, but his daughter assisted him in recovering from his serious injuries. An ambush cost him one of his legs. At the moment, he works as a designer for a major electronics company. He resides with his daughter and talks sporadically about the difficulties faced by soldiers serving overseas. Please feel free to express your opinions in the space provided for comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.